Are you a new digital artist that is terrified of Photoshop's price? And there's so many different art programs that you don't know what to choose from. Or maybe you have used a drawing program before, but it's not quite what you're looking for. Well, let me help you. In this video, I will test 3 of the free art softwares. But don't worry, this is only part 1, and in a future video I will cover more. So in this video I will test out Krita, Gimp and Autodesk Sketchbook. So let's start with Krita. It's not the first time that I'm using it, but I've used it a long time ago and I don't remember a lot. And from the start I was a bit confused. Where do you change brush size? Oh, here it is. Where do you edit a brush? There. Where can you turn on the stabilizer? Here? I feel like the UI is a bit all over the place. It certainly requires getting used to. I use Clip Studio Paint normally, and all these options are in one spot, so it was kinda confusing to me. But I actually like this brush smoothing tool because it's applied to all of the brushes and you don't have to do it separately for all of them. As far as the brushes themselves go, there is a lot built in already, but if you want more, you can definitely find them online. It does support the ABR files, so if you want to use Photoshop brushes, you can. But from what I've read, you still would have to recreate that type of brush that you want because it only imports the texture. One thing that I didn't really like is that it seems not to have an eraser tool. There's 3 erasers in the brush tab though, and by clicking E on your keyboard you can turn any brush into an eraser. I now use shortcuts way more often than when I was using Krita, so it doesn't bother me as much as it used to, but it's just something to keep in mind. I like how when you use the transform tool and you click the part you want to transform, the frame becomes less visible, making it easier to see what you're doing. Also, it was kinda laggy, but I believe it was because of OBS and not Krita itself, so if you don't intend to record your drawings, you will be fine. And if you do, keep everything else closed if your computer is older like mine. Or you can use the built-in time-lapse recorder that I believe is a new addition to Krita. And it works a bit different than in other drawing programs in the way that it takes a screenshot of your artwork every couple seconds and then you can compile it in a video editing software and have a time lapse, which is a couple of extra steps, but I mean, if it works, it works. Then I wanted to color the drawing and the color wheel was in the same tab as the overview. So I had to rearrange them and it looked cluttered. The interface is chunky, takes up a lot of space. When I started using Clip Studio, I felt similar because I wasn't used to the tabs on both sides, but I got used to it. And if you want to use Krita, you will probably get used to it as well. And hell, if it's the only thing that I kinda don't like, then I don't think that's too bad. There's some really cool things about Krita, namely its way of dealing with clipping masks. It's called a clipping group and it works similarly to Clip Studio's clip to layer below option, which will allow you to draw on a different layer but within the boundaries of the main layer, so to speak. This is a great feature because Photoshop's clipping masks always confused me and I hate them. Another cool thing is Snapshot Docker. It lets you save your current progress, keep drawing, and if you don't like the result, you can easily go back to where you saved without having to Ctrl Z 100 times. but I think it only works temporarily, and if you close and open Krita again, it will be gone, so just be aware of that. Shading works good. There's a lot of brushes, like I said before, and they work great. I especially like the pencil brushes. They have this realistic feel to them. Overall, I think Krita has everything you might need. It even has vector layers now, which I briefly tested, but you can't use brushes on it, so for me it's not very useful. So yeah, I think it will satisfy pretty much all your artistic needs, and it honestly can compete with other paid programs. I give it 4.5 out of 5. Next up we have Gimp. I've used it before, but only for photo editing when I was like 12, and I remember the interface being split up and it was driving me insane. But look, they've changed it. Holy shit, they actually changed it. Wow. It looks much better than it used to. But from the start, it didn't have pen pressure enabled, and even finding out how to enable it was difficult. Like, what is this? I can't click this. And after I figured it out, it still didn't work. I watched videos and read forums about it, but Gimp just didn't see my tablet. The pen and buttons on my tablet worked, but it just didn't recognize it. I tried plugging the tablet into a different USB port. I restarted my computer, checked if my drivers were updated, nothing worked. And then I thought, what if I open Gimp with the tablet instead of my mouse? And it worked. It was stupid, I don't even know why it worked, but it shouldn't be so hard to figure it out. The brushes themselves were okay. There's not a lot, and some of them are weird. But yeah, there's not a lot of useful brushes, but you can download more as well. But I also noticed that you can't have both pressure size and pressure opacity on. Then what is this whole grid for? It's so confusing. I also found out that if you're using a tablet and say you were using a brush tool and then you switch to a mouse, and last thing you did with a mouse was use a transform tool, it will switch to the transform tool when you click, which is a weird feature. By the way, the whole transform tool is so weird and I hate it. I'm probably missing something. I'm sure I am. Because the program shouldn't insist on duplicating the thing that I want to transform instead of just transforming it. And it shouldn't be so confusing. You shouldn't feel that in every step that you're drawing, you're fighting the program. And when you switch brushes, the previous brush resets. So you might be drawing something small, switch to a different brush, and when you go back, it's huge again. Annoying. I don't think it has a time-lapse option as well. And the fill tool acts weird. I have not seen such an unsatisfying fill tool. It's yet another tool that I couldn't figure out, and yeah, I probably could Google every single issue and find out how to overcome it. But do you think a new user will do that, or will they get discouraged and find a better software that doesn't fight them? Coloring was honestly not as bad as I thought it would be, but probably only because I was only making a simple drawing. Could I create something less simple? I don't think so. I would go insane. Overall, I think Gimp is very unintuitive and it fights you at every step of your drawing. The UI is really confusing. I had zero fun drawing in it, and I am aware that it's mainly a photo editing software, but so is Photoshop, and I know people do use Gimp for drawing. So, would I recommend it? now, especially since you have other free programs made specifically for creating art that are much better than this. 2 out of 5, and just because it is kind of better than it used to be, and the finished drawing looks fine. Moving on to the last program, we will be trying out Autodesk never mind. Moving on, we will be trying out Medibang. I haven't used it, but I've heard about it, and I think I've heard decent things. It does have a paid version which offers extra brushes and materials as well as cloud storage, I think, and the cost starts at around $20 per year, so that's a little steep, but I think the free version should be sufficient. Okay, first thing I noticed was that when you scroll to zoom in or out, it's reversed. It's not a huge deal, and if you have a tablet, you'll probably use the buttons on it anyway. Other things that I noticed right away were: 1. The color palette is a rectangle or a square, and I am not sure if you can change it to a triangle. And 2. The brushes don't have a preview. I mean, they do, but only for the active brush. And if you have a lot of brushes, that might complicate things, and there's not a lot of brushes, but again, you can download them. And when you click this wheel next to the brush, you can edit it. There is not a whole lot of stuff that you can change though, just the most basic things like pressure or width. And speaking of, the pen pressure works nicely, and there's also stroke correction available. There is a time-lapse feature, and from what I noticed, it starts a new time-lapse every time we open the program, so you would have to piece everything together if you don't finish your art in one sitting. The lasso tool is interesting. When you circle something, the active area stays the correct color and the inactive area is grayed out, so to speak, which on one hand I like, because you know exactly what's on your selection, but on the other hand, you can't really see how what you're doing relates to everything else. Fill tool is fine, could be better, but it's not awful. When it comes to clipping layers, they work similarly to Krita. You just make a new layer and check this little square. Shading with the default brushes was a bit of a hassle, especially considering you can't customize them a lot, and I don't know, I can't pinpoint it, but there was something weird about them to me. Honestly, I don't have a lot to say about this program. It's decent. It's kind of minimalistic, maybe a bit too minimalistic for my liking, but it has all of the basic functions and it's not a struggle to work with it. So I think that if you're just starting out with digital art, you might like it because there's nothing really to overwhelm you. Sure, you'll have to Google a couple things at first, but you'd have to do that with any other new software anyway, and I doubt it will be as much Googling as it would be with Gimp. So overall, I think Medibang is an alright software. It's not amazing, but it's also not awful. It's just there, being inoffensive. But would I recommend it? Maybe. Especially, I would say, if you're a beginner. Like I said, you'll find all necessary tools in there, and chances are you'll learn them quickly without being too overwhelmed. Initially, I wanted to give it a 3, but that would be too close to Gimp's rating, and I just felt like it wasn't fair. So I will give it a 3.5 out of 5. So that's it for this video. I hope it was useful to you, and if it was, leave a like, maybe subscribe if you want to know when part 2 is up. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye.